intended for mature audiences.
Rudy's Revelation.
Hey everyone, welcome to a quick shout out to everybody out there. I appreciate you joining me briefly this morning, a little early today. I just want to go through a couple headlines today before I sign off. A couple things I got to do today after yesterday's terrible podcast. The video stream wasn't working very well, so I'm going to take today and I'm going to try to work out any of the issues that I was having, obviously having some issues. So I'm going to try to work those out. So at least for the future, we're not going to have any problems. I'm going to be investing technically in a couple other things. So we're going to talk about that as well. So I am streaming through Rumble Studio today. So not any issues so far. So I'm just going to see if the feed is coming through. Yeah, I got a feed here. So that's good. Welcome. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to go through a few headlines. It's not a terribly busy news day. We have the thing in Gaza where there may be a peace. At least Hamas has signed on to the first plan. I don't have really any hope for them if they give up all the hostages. That's kind of keeping Israel from flattening Gaza completely. So I don't really know how this is going to transpire necessarily. So I'm just going to go through a couple of headlines today. Most importantly, so I did start another all right, just hold on 1 second here because the story that I had here, the most important story, is gone. Just friggin' typical. So I'm gonna try to get through this right now. All right, I'm just gonna try to go to the story here. Of course, the only story that I really wanted to cover today, well, they arrested an arsonist for starting the LA fire, and I'm just going to try to go to the story here briefly, if I could call it up. So this is the Los Angeles Daily News. And the story's not coming up, of course. So let me go through the other stories first. That's why. Nothing seems to be working. I can't even move between, and this is part of the problem. I can't even move between. I can't move between applications now. So if you didn't know what basically happened, what was breaking news, and how that article miraculously disappeared. So not only am I facing actual technical issues, but I also have quote unquote ghost in the machine issues. So this is part of the problem, is that for many in Palisades, arson arrest affirms suspicions of fire before the big one. A mix of rage, closure, questions, and evidence in the Palisades on Wednesday after the arrest of the suspect on suspicion of starting a blaze that prosecutors led to the Palisades fire. And they're trying to say, well, the Palisades fire wasn't a big fire. That wasn't the one that burned down Los Angeles. They're all connected. It was actually a series of fires that were all started by arsonists who actually knew that the Santa Ana winds were blowing in through the mountains excessively. And of course, just like Lahaina, where the winds were coming, you set fires up in basically the wilderness. There are no telephone. Lahaina was a little different. Up in the hills there were electrical wires, but here above LA and the Palisades, there were no electrical wires. So they could not rely on that excuse that they first put up that said, their electrical wires were down and that started the fires. We know that wasn't true in LA because there are no electrical wires up there. So we know there was a series of fires started by arsonists taking advantage of the Santa Ana winds. Now, who put them up to this? It's the same question you would have with perhaps a school shooter. What is the motive? Who would put somebody up to this? They're people goading mentally disturbed leftists online to go do these sorts of things. This is not anything new. So let's see if we can't get to some of the other articles here. The Washington Post, as Pope Leo riles conservatives, some say just focus on the church. The reality of this article is that Pope Leo is in the last few popes, not John Paul, I think the second. Since him, we're moving the Catholic Church, speaking about fascism, into the realm of the socialist global takeover. And I know people, that's a crazy idea. People might say that, but that's just the case. It's true, and you could see it, that popes of the Catholic Church was traditionally conservative, socially, not really fiscally, but socially. You have this sort of movement to the left, culturally, socially, wink and a nod as far as abortion goes, changing the stance on abortion, and also in trans and all these other issues that sane people would be firmly on the right on, culturally, are now pushing this progressive agenda, which is the globalist agenda, is they firmly sat on the side the left. NBC News, after a summer respite, bird flu is back. Of course it is, because they can't stop Trump. Bird flu is spreading again as waterfowl migrate, and poultry cases are spiking earlier than expected, so some state officials are bracing for a challenging autumn. Now you're trying to say that it doesn't really make any sense. The reason is certainly with human transmission of disease, it's because in winter times everybody goes inside, and so they're close quartered. But in the conditions of wild waterfowl and other fowl, these conditions are ever present. So commercial fowl is always inside together, and so they would always be spreading disease. The reason there's flu season is because when you have medium temperatures around 50 degrees, it's refrigerator temperature, the spread of aerosolized pathogens is more likely because they stay alive in the air longer. And that's inside, because outside you have the UV rays which kill pathogens. So they're just ramping it up. They're getting ready to release another pathogen upon us. Unheard. Blue Sky Civil War shows free speech is harder than it looks. Of course, places like Blue Sky, which is like the liberal X now, they go in there and they want to police everybody's speech, like you can't talk. So it's not free speech on Blue Sky, because you get ganged up on, just like they were doing on Twitter, and trying to unplatform you if you say things people don't like. That's not free speech. Free speech is being able to say things people don't like, and you have no repercussions. Status has the headline, post-traumatic disorder. Adam O'Neill, who is the head of opinion there at the Washington Post now, say he's bringing intellectual, I think he's the executive editor, excuse me, Adam O'Neill, says he's bringing intellectual diversity to the Washington Post opinion pages, but the moves he's making behind the scenes tell a different story. It's not a different story. He's getting conservatives to come on to the editorial board, the opinion board, and into the opinion pages because that's what we need. Diversity of opinion is much more important than a diversity of other characteristics, physical characteristics. Much, much more important, because if you're black or you're Jewish or you're Arab or whatever, you can have a whole diversity of opinion within those groups. So actually physical characteristics are not as important and not nearly as interesting as intellectual characteristics. All right, I got to move on, and then I'm going to close out. Move on now. Treasury Department surveillance of the southern border faces Fourth Amendment challenges it really shouldn't. A new FinCEN rule forced small money services businesses to collect personal data on nearly every customer transaction. Lawsuits claim that violates the Fourth Amendment. On the southern border, so what they're doing is they're trying to track cartel, so using surveillance to try to eliminate illicit activity financially. If you're not an American, this shouldn't be an issue, but I think it's needed. But again, you know, it's not the same as, let's say, the Bank of America sharing financial information with people that went to January 6th rally with the feds and having it be unwarranted. And credit card companies do this all the time. Wall Street Journal, what's really going on in Portland? According to police reports, protests outside ICE facility were dwindling and low energy before Trump calling the truth, law enforcement logs show. No. Sure, it got worse. But there's been protests at federal buildings in Portland for a decade almost. On that, since 2020, let's say 5 years. All right, since COVID, certainly before and during COVID. We know the problems that the Northwest is having. And the Wall Street Journal is not going to really go into it, but the reality is that's the mindset of people on the left, including this arsonist that mysteriously, that article disappeared from me. Mysteriously, but people on the left are militant, especially if you're a narco-communist. You're more interested in burning down, tearing down the existing system without insight into the repercussions or what happens next. Because they never think about that because they don't have a better plan. That's the reality of what's happening there. And of course, one last article from the Daily Beast. Trump issues deranged call to jail blue state governor and mayor. It's not deranged. And of course, that comes from the Daily Beast. I said it yesterday. If you obstruct federal law enforcement, that's obstruction, and you could go to prison. So I guess that's it for me today. That was a quick thing. So as I said, I'm spending the day. I'm going to do some work on the technical aspects. I have to see how this multi-stream came out and see what adjustments I'm going to need to make. I'm investing in some tech as well. But that's going to take a while to ramp up. So I need to institute that slowly. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be trying to fix the tech I have existing now to make sure that what happened yesterday didn't happen, where the video was freezing and lagging. So I'm going to try to fix all these things over the next week or so, but specifically today. So thanks for joining me today. And hopefully I will see you tomorrow. I'm going to check to see how this recording went and adjust it where needed. I think I need to make a couple more adjustments, but I appreciate you joining me today. And please engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Share the podcast. All right. Peace out. Thanks for joining me. Respect.